I'm laughing because I just did this and the phone was not on record. I just spent probably a half an hour doing section 22. Okay. Bummer. And I had the dogs barking next door and just all these interruptions. I've probably spent the last hour and a half trying to get this put together. All right. Welcome back to Prayer of the Barren Womb, part 22 of the Four Rivers of Eden. In my last video, I put forward the theory that Abram was in fact the third river of life. And the third river out of four mentioned in Genesis chapter 2, this mysterious section that's always eluded me. I put forward the idea that my support for this idea, for this theory, comes from a couple of different directions. One is the shape of a father, three sons, and a grandson is mentioned for the third time within the first 11 chapters of Genesis. This shape shows up again and again for us, and when the Bible does this, the Bible, the author with a capital A, is intending us to extract interpretive understanding from the data, okay? The data cannot be argued. The data is there. Parent, three sons, grandson. Parent, three sons, grandson. Parent, three sons, grandson. The data cannot be argued. It's there. For it to happen 3 times in 11 chapters requires interpretation. My interpretation is that this shape reveals to us a transition that happens as a result of worldwide judgment. For example, the first time we see this shape, we see a worldwide judgment event taking place with just Adam and Eve. At that time, that was a worldwide judgment event. Humanity was judged at the garden, or in the garden, and then we see this shape taking place. The judgment event that happened in the garden is a type. It's a reference point. It's an anchor point for us to interpret what's going on downstream. Adam and Eve were the entirety of the human race, and they were judged in their expulsion. Now, the thunder blast of God's judgment did not fall upon Adam and Eve. The thunder blast of God's judgment, the death penalty for their rebellion, did not fall upon them. Yes, Adam and Eve became beings who would now experience mortality, entropy, decay, and we would return to dust. But the immediate thunder blast of judgment did not fall upon Adam and Eve. It fell upon an innocent animal. Now, in my opinion, that innocent animal is spoken of in the last book of the Bible, Revelation 13, verse 8. Let's go there real quickly. Revelation 13 is an iconic chapter in the Bible. It's where we get the mark of the beast. Even if you don't know where to find the mark of the beast, you've heard of the mark of the beast. And in Revelation 13, we find this beast rising up from the seas that has the appearance of a lamb, but speaks as a dragon, that all authority is given to it, that it makes war with the saints and is given the power to overcome the saints. And he opens his mouth, in the verse 6, he opens his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name, his tabernacle, and those who dwell in heaven. It was granted to him to make war with the saints and to overcome them. And authority was given to him over every tribe, tongue, and nation. And here we are in verse 8. This is what I want to draw your attention to. Don't want to go down any kind of teaching for Revelation 13. I just want to draw your attention to this verse. All who dwell on the earth will worship him, whose names have not been written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. I believe Revelation 13 verse 8 is referring to Genesis chapter 3. That in my opinion, the animal whose life was taken on behalf of Adam and Eve was a very special lamb. Now, this is, for what it's worth, this is for your consideration. I believe a very special lamb stepped forward on behalf of Adam and Eve. And its life was taken. Its blood was shed. Its skin was peeled back from the flesh of its body to clothe the rebellious children of God, Adam and Eve. I believe that lamb would have been what theologians call a theophany, a pre-incarnate Yeshua. Okay, for what it's worth, you can go crazy, fight amongst yourselves. It's my theory. That's all. We're not told what kind of animal it is in the Genesis narrative, but in my opinion, this lamb was very special. And even if it wasn't a theophany, I believe it still to have been a lamb, because the typology is so profoundly powerful for us who understand Yeshua as our sin bearer. So judgment, the death penalty fell not upon Adam and Eve, but upon an innocent animal. And then you find this shape showing up of a redemptive bloodline being raised up on behalf of Abel through Seth. The bloodline goes from Seth to Noah. Noah is the one selected to preserve humanity. Adam's world is judged on a collective stage at the flood. Noah is preserved through the flood. Noah has his own garden event. His world is judged collectively at the tower. And a worldwide judgment event requires a new river of life. Now, God has already tied his hands that he's not going to extinguish life in the way that he did at the flood, but he is nonetheless going to judge the world for their rebellious act at the Tower of Babel, which means that, one, we need a third river of life now. And not only does judgment look different, but I believe also the river of life looks different. The themes are still in place, but its iteration is taking a different shape now. Instead of humanity being judged collectively on a survival basis, humanity is now shattered. Their tool for building a one world government is now shattered, and they are scattered into tribes, tongues, and nations. Now God is confronting the difficulty of reaching humanity. He can no longer do this in a unified way with one language. He now has to do this. He has to select from among the nations a single nation that will become a light to the nations. And in order for that to happen, he needs to select an individual through whom he will build this nation. That individual is Abram. Abram is the third river of life. Now, the sages, the ancient sages, have preserved for us their questions of why was Abram selected among all the possible humans that were on the earth at that time. What distinguished Abram? We know why God selected Adam. Adam was the originator, the Rosh, the beginning of humanity. Noah was selected because he was righteous and he was pure. We're given two qualities of Noah as to why he was selected to preserve the human race. We're given no reasons as to why Abram was selected from among the human race to be the father of a great nation. Or were we? And this is where we need the help of Southern House. Southern House. Okay. Little bit of a detour here. If you're one of my 12 subscribers, you're already on board with the notion of Northern House, Southern House, and the kingdom of God is in fact divided. Now, this is very late developed. I'm 60. I didn't begin to get an understanding of Northern House, Southern House, not until maybe 12 years ago did I begin to understand that there was something to this. I was raised my entire life in a Baptist home. My parents were missionaries. My parents were missionaries to the Jewish community in the Detroit area, and I had no understanding that the kingdom had been divided. And I just want to take just a little detour here. In Matthew, I think it's Matthew 12, somebody can fact check me. I'm just going to tell the story. If I'm wrong, correct me, write it in the comments. In Matthew chapter 12, I believe, Yeshua, Jesus, is talking about a kingdom divided against itself cannot stand, and a house divided will fall. And yes, we in America at this present moment can understand the truth of those words. We're living in a divided kingdom that's being unraveled as a result of this polarity. So we can appreciate the truth of Yeshua's words. However, the listener of Yeshua, from the perspective in time of 2,000 years ago, whose ears would actually have heard Yeshua teach this message to them, would have had an additional understanding. Their feet in Jerusalem, standing in Jerusalem, or wherever it was that Yeshua taught this message, they would have had an additional layer of understanding. They would have realized that they were standing in the land of a divided kingdom. They would have been Southern House Israelites. They would have associated themselves with the tribal identity of Judah. Now, if we go back and just, I don't want to get bogged down here, but it's important to understand. Okay, anyhow. Abram, the father of a great nation. We go through the patriarchs. We got Isaac, then we got Jacob. Jacob is the father of the 12 princes of Egypt. He gives birth to 12 sons. These 12 sons become the tribal identities. There is an adoption event that takes place in there. Okay, Jacob actually gives birth to, through his direct seed, his offspring are 12 sons. He inherits 2 more through the direct offspring of Joseph. The 2 tribes that he adopts are Ephraim and Manasseh. So there's actually 14 tribal identities that inherit the land of promise given to Abram. These 14 tribal identities, of course, are brothers and filled with rivalries, and we read about their terrible rivalries throughout the book of Judges. They never did very well, and finally they say to Samuel, give us a king. Samuel doesn't like the idea. God says it's okay. They're not rejecting you. They're rejecting me. Give them a king. Samuel anoints Saul as the first king of Israel. The tribes don't really unite under Saul. There's always tension in the family. Well, because of the prophecy of Jacob, that it would be through Judah that the authority, the kingship, would transpire. Saul is from Benjamin. What does this mean? Okay, too much information. Saul fails as the first king of Israel. David, from the tribe of Judah, is anointed, and we know that he united all of these tribal identities under the single authority of his throne and his crown. He was the first king to rule over a united kingdom of God. All 12 tribes recognized his authority and submitted to his authority and his leadership. The tribes of Israel, for the first time, were a single nation under the authority and kingship of King David. That authority is transferred to Solomon. Solomon rules in a time of peace. He builds the first temple, and all 12 tribes recognized Solomon as the single king over the tribes of Israel. Solomon was the second king to rule over a united kingdom of Israel. He goes apostate. Saul goes apostate with his wives and ends up building temples to false gods and so forth. And God says to him, I'm going to strip the kingdom from you, but not in your times. It will happen in the time of your son, for the sake of my servant David. Jeroboam is raised up as the leader of the northern house. And anyhow, northern house comes to the son of Solomon and says, give us relief from our taxes because your father imposed a heavy burden on us. The wise older servants of Rehoboam say, yeah, do what Jeroboam wants. They'll serve you forever. Rehoboam listens to his stupid younger counselors and says, my father whipped you with chains. I'm going to whip you with scorpions. 10 northern tribes says, to your tents, O Jacob, what have we to do with Judah? The kingdom is divided. in the time of Rehoboam. This would be about 900 years before Yeshua. The kingdom was never united again. Prophets were raised up to go after both northern house and southern house. And you'll recognize this in the writings of Jeremiah, in the writings of Ezekiel. Some prophets were sent specifically to the northern house. Some were sent specifically to the southern house. But throughout the writings of the prophets, you'll recognize particularly strong in Jeremiah and Ezekiel, northern house prophecies, southern house prophecies. Ezekiel was given a prophecy to the northern house, 390 days on your left side, 40 days on your right side to southern kingdom. So you'll see this very clearly in Ezekiel, how God tells Ezekiel to take a stick and write on it Joseph and for his companions, Judah and for his companions. Put both sticks in your hand and make them one. It's a prophecy of the divided house, the divided kingdom, coming together into a united kingdom. At the time of Jesus, at the time of Yeshua, when he is speaking, a kingdom divided against itself cannot stand. Southern house, Judah, would have realized the truth of that. They would have realized that they have northern house brethren that have been scattered into the nations and are gone. In fact, in Yeshua's ministry, he says, I've only been sent to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. I always understood that to mean he's talking to Jews. No, that's not what the Jews, and this is part of the Hebrew roots understanding, is we have to get back to what the ancient listeners of Yeshua would have understood those words to mean. I've been sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel would have meant something entirely different to them. It would have meant that Yeshua was gathering the lost 10 northern tribes, that Yeshua was gathering the kingdom back. A powerful messianic understanding. One of the duties of the anointed one, the prophet, the Messiah, the one who would come, was the regathering of the house. And this is a major reason why Southern House rejected Yeshua as their Messiah, is because he never fully did this. He never gathered the Northern House and the Southern House and reunited a divided kingdom. So these are understandings that I've gathered as a result of my Hebrew roots journey, that I now have an understanding of the two houses. And when I say Northern House this, blah, 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 Southern House that, blah, 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 you have to understand now that when I talk about Southern House preserving for us truths that that Northern House walked away from, what I'm talking about is Judah has preserved the Torah for us in the Northern House. We walked away from Torah. We said Jesus did all that. He fulfilled all the law and the prophets. We don't have to do anything. We don't have, all that Jewish stuff has been done away with. We're under grace. That's just not true. That's just not true. The Torah has never been done away with. And I don't want to go down this, I don't want to go in this direction. But you have to understand that part of the Hebrew roots awakening, the Hebrew roots understanding of the gospel is also called Ephraim awakening. That's another name that we go by. And you'll hear people refer to Ephraim awakening. Ephraim is idiomatic of 10 northern tribes. Ephraim is awakening now. After a fullness of time event transpired around the year 2010, somewhere around there, Ephraim is now awakening to the beauty of Torah. And just like in the prodigal son, Ephraim is coming back to the Father. They see the beauty of Torah before our Southern House brothers who have preserved the beauty of Torah. Northern House is going to awaken to their identity before Southern House is going to awaken to the identity of their Messiah. We're going to see the beauty of Torah before Judah sees the beauty of Yeshua. When that happens, the house will be united again. Southern House is going to awaken to the identity of their Mashiach. Northern House is being awakened right now to the beauty of Torah. Yeshua is the Torah made flesh. Okay, I'm gonna cut this off here because that was unintended. But I think it's important just to get a thumbnail of what I'm talking about when I talk about Southern House and Northern House. I have come back into an understanding that I am a part of this Northern House awakening of the beauty of Torah. And it's transformed my life. It's transformed my understanding of the Word of God. It's transformed my understanding of Yeshua. And what can I say? Here I stand, I can do no other. I invite you back to part 23 of the Four Rivers of Eden, where we will further explore the life of Abram. I hope to see you then. Thank you for your time.